Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen. Always good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining me. Are you surprised that your Republican colleague has such negative words for the administration? I mean, last week he said that it was the worst briefing in terms of intelligence that he'd ever been in. What do you make of all this?
Well, I've been in Congress longer than Senator Lee, and it was the worst briefing I'd been in as well. I commend he and Senator Paul for standing up and speaking the truth and not being fearful of any repercussions.
Do you think he will suffer repercussions, though? And if so, what could those be? I mean, anything beyond a presidential tweet, potentially?
Well, I don't know how the president operates. I think Senator Lee is safe in a seat in Utah, but there could be projects or appointments that he wants that he might have more difficulty getting. I don't know. There's always that possibility. Trump is he's a politician, and he's vindictive.
Yeah. Look, things have settled down a bit this week between the U.S. and Iran. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien says that the Trump campaign's maximum pressure campaign is working. Let's take a listen to what he said.
Iran is being choked off, and Iran's going to have no other choice but to come to the table. If Iran wants to maintain a modern country, a modern economy, they're going to have to come to the table and negotiate.
I'm curious if you agree with that. We should point out that there's a USA Today poll which suggests that Americans don't agree with that. But are we, in fact, safer since the death of General Soleimani?
I don't think we are. I think that Iran will continue to take actions against America through their proxies, and they themselves will do it, but they'll probably try to hide behind their proxies. Israel will face an attack from Hezbollah, I feel sure. That's a matter of time. And what we saw today in these firings on the air bases in Iraq, they might even help us, though, in reality, because it may show the Iraqis that they need America there to help them defend themselves, and that Iran is really no great friend of the Iraqi government, even if they're Sunnis. But the whole thing has been thrown into chaos. We were on the verge of we had some good fortune with the nuclear agreement. Now they announced they're not going to abide by any part of the nuclear agreement, and they might try to ramp up their efforts to get a nuclear bomb. That's not a good situation. I was happy to see the protest in Iran today. They seem to have turned to pro-Iranian demonstrations against America, but apparently that didn't continue, so that's good. We'll have to see how it all unfolds, but there's a lot to be seen. So I wish the administration had been more clear with the congressional briefing, classified briefing, and told us about what they had. They didn't really give us any information about any attack being imminent. They didn't mention the embassies. If they had that information, which they claim they have now, they should have given it in the classified briefing to the members of Congress. That alone is a reason to question the professionalism of this administration.
Well, there seems to be a bipartisan agreement with your sentiment there on that briefing, but is there anything, sir, that you heard on the Sunday talk shows, that publicly, that adds more in terms of what led up to this strike? Have you gotten any more information just by watching television?
No, I read the New York Times on Sunday, and the in-depth story they have is interesting about what led up to it and how Trump used intelligence to be able to track Soleimani in Baghdad as well as in Damascus, getting on the plane and knew when he was going to arrive. He was talking about how excellent our intelligence was. Well, our intelligence is outstanding, and it did help him with this effort. But the only time he's really distrusted it is when they said that Russia was responsible for interfering in our elections. And then he had no reason not to agree with Vladimir Putin, who may be a pretty violent guy who's had something to do over the years with deaths of Americans and deaths of others, of our allies. And yet we seem to genuflect to Vladimir Putin.
Regarding Nancy Pelosi sending over the articles of impeachment potentially some point this week, what was, if anything, gained by the holding on to them these last few weeks?
I think it gave the opportunity for Bolton to come out and say he would testify and would like to. He's got a lot to say, and his testimony is important. And it's incumbent upon the senators to allow testimony, particularly from Bolton, but others like Mulvaney and OMB's Duffy and the fellow over at Defense he was talking to, that they be allowed to testify and give the best evidence. You should always have the best evidence. And the whole idea that maybe the House didn't have it because the president was stonewalling us doesn't hold any water. You have a trial, you go with every bit of evidence you have, and you give it to the jury so that truth and justice can come out of it.
Congressman, to your point, some minds may have been changed as to whether or not there should be witnesses in this upcoming Senate trial. But it doesn't seem like Mitch McConnell has budged an inch. So what is the likelihood that witnesses will be allowed to testify?
Well, it's not. McConnell hadn't changed, and he probably may not. But if Susan Collins and Martha McSally and Cory Gardner and Joni Ernst and Tom Tillis don't come for witnesses and vote for witnesses and rules that allow that, and they don't have witnesses, they will be hurt in their elections come November. The American public wants to hear the truth, and there are enough independents that want the truth to be discussed for them to know and Congress to know and the trial to be fair. And they stand in a situation where their votes could make it to where it is fair. I've been saying this, I think, on your show for at least a year, that impeachment would bring about a situation in the Senate to where certain people, and these are the 5 most vulnerable senators on the Republican side, will have to make a decision of representing their states or representing Donald Trump.
Democratic Congressman from Tennessee, we appreciate the longevity on this show and your comments always. Thank you so much, sir.